Assyrians are one of those civilizations that have been all but forgotten in the modern day. Despite this, they were known for their incredible military strength, having established an empire spanning from Egypt to Iran and from the Caucasus to the Arabian Peninsula. Assyria was an ancient kingdom located in what is today northern Iraq. This region is a part of the historical region known as Mesopotamia, or the land between the rivers, due to its location between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. It was here that the Akkadian language first emerged around 2000 BC, a language which would go on to heavily influence the Assyrians. The first king of this new empire was Shamshi-Adad V. He began to aggressively expand his territory, conquering most of northern Mesopotamia by 911 BC. Over the next 2 centuries, every king of Assyria would go on to further expand the empire. This was largely due to the fact that the Assyrians built their cities out of mud brick, which is not as durable as stone structures. When the empire fell, these structures were largely abandoned and fell into disrepair. What's worse is that many sites were purposefully destroyed by later rulers. Even today, there is very little knowledge of what happened to the Assyrian people after their empire's collapse. Despite the mystery surrounding the end of the Assyrians, their legacy is clear. Located in the city of Ashurbanipal, the library contained thousands of clay tablets inscribed with everything from religious texts to mathematical formulas. It was here that the royal scribe recorded and organized every book within the library. Some believe that this was the first true library, and certainly it was the most comprehensive collection of books in the ancient world. Sadly, the library was destroyed along with the rest of Ashurbanipal when the city fell to the Medes and Babylonians. However, enough of the text survived in other libraries to ensure that the legacy of Ashurbanipal's library would live on. Their military tactics and strategies were unparalleled in the ancient world. Unfortunately, not much remains of them today. Much of their history is a mystery. The truth is that the Assyrians were likely far more advanced than we give them credit for. Their empire may have been short-lived, but their impact on the ancient world was immeasurable. They also helped to spread literacy throughout Mesopotamia and pioneered the use of iron. Their palaces and temples were architectural marvels, and their artwork was highly detailed and lifelike. All of these achievements have left an indelible mark on human history. It is theorized that they assimilated with other peoples of the region, but this is the only theory, as there is no evidence to support any claims. Sadly, this means that we know very little about the later years of the Assyrians. For example, the city of Nimrud was sacked by the Persians in 612 BC and subsequently destroyed. This destruction, combined with the elements, ensured that there was little left of the once great Assyrian Empire. By 700 BC, the Neo-Assyrian Empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, making them the largest empire in the world at the time. The sheer size of the empire meant that communication took months. As neighboring kingdoms became more powerful, they began to challenge the Assyrians' dominance. One such kingdom was the Medes, a Central Asian tribe who desired Assyrian lands. In 612 BC, the Medes joined forces with the Babylonians to attack the Assyrian city of Nimrud. Despite its strong walls, the city was set ablaze and completely destroyed. Nineveh, the second capital, fared no better. Also attacked by the Medes and Babylonians, Nineveh too was destroyed in 610 BC. With their 2 great cities destroyed, the Assyrian Empire was effectively finished. Any remaining territory was quickly absorbed by the expanding Babylonian and Persian empires. so governors had a great deal of autonomy. Eventually, this led to revolts and rebellions, forcing the kings to spend most of their time putting down uprisings. However, it wasn't until around 1800 BC that the Assyrians really began to emerge as a civilization. This massive empire was held together with the use of a professional full-time army that engaged in constant warfare. Their capital city, Nimrud, was meticulously planned with straight roads connecting 7 major buildings. They also developed a unique writing style using clay tablets covered in cuneiform script. It was under the Assyrians that the practice of writing became widespread throughout the empire. Most famously, however, the Assyrians were masters of ironworking and were amongst the first to perfect the art of working with metal. It was largely thanks to their masterful weapons that the Assyrians were able to conquer and hold such vast amounts of land. Military conscription was common, and entire families were forced to move to a central location when the army was active. The Assyrian military was primarily comprised of foot soldiers and chariots. They were well trained and disciplined, often fighting in coordinated battalions, something unheard of in most contemporary armies. They also utilized siege engines, slings, battering rams and chariots during battle. The Assyrian kings were considered divine rulers, and so military campaigns were seen as holy wars with the king as a conduit for the gods. This gave the Assyrian army a ferocious edge in battle. If they won a battle, it was proof that Ashur himself was powerful. And if they lost, then the king was failing in his duty to the gods. Because of this, the Assyrians were relentless in their conquests. The exact origin of the name Assyrians is unknown, but it is theorized that the name comes from a collective term used by the Chaldeans for people living north of the Great Fertile Crescent. The Assyrians themselves called their empire Ashur, after their chief god Ashur. Over time, this became known to outsiders as Assyria. But how did these mysterious warriors rise to power? How did they conquer such vast amounts of land? And what eventually led to their downfall? Well, today we're gonna find out. So let's get started. The mighty Assyrians: rise, rule, and ruin unveiled. Early Assyrian history is not well understood, as very little archaeological evidence has been found to illuminate the early years. Early Assyrians likely lived in small city-states much like other Mesopotamian kingdoms. By 1000 BC, however, many of their cities were destroyed by the Sea Peoples, an alliance of various Mediterranean raiders. Following this, the Assyrians fell into obscurity. Yet within a century, they would make a stunning comeback. One of the earliest references to the Assyrians can be found in the Egyptian tale of the Hyksos invasion. The Egyptians claimed that the invading force was aided by a group known as the Asha, who some believe to be the Assyrians. Other theories suggest that the Ashans were another Mesopotamian group known as the Arameans. Either way, by 1365 BC, the Assyrians had established their first great kingdom centered around the city of Ashur. For the next few centuries, the Assyrians would grow in power, eventually subjugating the neighboring Aramean kingdoms. The Assyrian Empire. Assyria would once again rise to prominence thanks to the rise of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. At the height of their power, the Assyrians ruled over a population of around 5 million subjects. Despite being primarily a warrior culture, the Assyrians were sophisticated in several ways. Sadly, though, despite their many achievements, almost nothing remains of the empire today. The downfall of a giant. As the Assyrian Empire grew in size, internal problems began to arise. Whilst expansion was impressive, it made governing difficult. Another reason for the fall of the Assyrians was the emergence of stronger neighbors. While the Assyrians were formidable, they weren't invincible. After their destruction, the Assyrians seemed to vanish from history. Legacy. However, their most notable achievement was their library. The Assyrians are a fascinating civilization whose accomplishments were truly impressive. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Thank you for watching. Do you think the Assyrians are more fascinating or more frightening? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching.